Welcome back, players. Jack with 36 Cancel here, just with some quick updates between my usual quarterly videos. I have a lot of videos in the pipeline about Hololive, about Springfest and Teams, and another installation of my Showcasing 100 Decks series. However, there have been some pretty interesting things happening that you players at home should know before I finally move on from all that to my spring update, which at this rate will be released by Thanksgiving. So just as a mini update here, let's talk about what's happened in the recent weeks. So the biggest news right now is that English finally has a real restriction list. We technically had one before, but it was only because a card in Batman Ninja was designed in error. For those of you who don't follow Japanese Weiss Schwarz, the Japanese game has a pretty actively managed banned and restricted list. This is pretty common for any TCG, however, English Weiss didn't have one for a very long time, and it was hotly contested whether or not English needed one or not. As for me, I didn't used to think it needed one, but then Day Live happened, and my position evolved. As it turns out, a lot of people felt the same way, because first and the primary thing on the English restriction list that was just released is Date A Live. So as of April 2022, here are the new rules for deck construction. First, in any Date A Live deck, you may now only run a Terrible Spirit Kurumi as a 2-of. To whoever max rarity'd their Date A Live deck with the SEC Kurumi, I'm so sorry. Further, you must now choose one of 3 cards when constructing your deck if you decide to include any. These are, for the Sky and Sword Toka, the Bouncing Brainstormer, School Uniform Toka, the Back Row Buffer, and a Spring Moment Yoshino, the 1-1 mobile anti-early play. You can't run a combination of them even if it's 1-1 and 1. If you have even one copy of any of them, you can have 0 copies of the others. Now, Date Live wasn't the only set to get the hammer. Kaguya-sama actually has a similar restriction now with the choose one of 3 deal. In your Kaguya decks, you can now only run either A. Serious Showdown Between Geniuses K, the Mill Run Queen Cut, B. Supreme Bliss Chica, the Top-Checking Ricky, or C. Bestowing Courage I, the Bouncing Drop Searcher that's also a Resonate target for the 1-1 Assister and 3-2 Finisher Kaguya. Again, having even one copy of these in any of your decks makes using the others illegal. Once more, RIP to the people who max ready their Kaguya decks. So, obviously the point of a restriction and ban list is in theory to keep the metagame healthy and curb more powerful sets from totally dominating the game. After all, even with extensive playtesting before release, it's tough to really get your hands on how any given set will influence the game when it comes out. Day Live, however, was widely recognized as an absolute giant and a quote-unquote gate that decks that had less tools against standby would have a lot of trouble dealing with, even though they might be very good in a meta where Day Live didn't exist, at least in its current form. So in so many words, it made sense that it was hit like this. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's a powerful deck, as do many others, however the restrictions do make it significantly less obnoxious. Kaguya is a little less cut and dry. The Kaguya restrictions are basically exactly how the set is restricted in Japan, which many players were afraid Bushiroad would just copy and paste what they did in Japan without thinking about English as its own beast, which would definitely be a bad move. I've heard many people say that since Kaguya isn't nearly the giant as it is in Japan, as far as popularity or representation in English, that they should have held off on this one, and I can see the logic in both leaving it alone and hitting it. As a scrub-out casual player, I can't comment in nearly as meaningful a way as those who have really dived deep into the professional scene. As always, I'd highly recommend you check out other Weiss Schwarz channels here, like The Clock Tower or ENTCG, for the content they've released on the subject. But no matter how you feel about it, if you don't follow these new rules after April, your deck is illegal and cannot be played in tournament. Also, if anyone wants to buy this stupid KSP even after the restriction list is a thing, let me know. So this is pretty big news. It was long debated whether or not Bushiroad would introduce a real restriction list in English, and now that the proverbial seal is broken, it's likely they'll continue to utilize this in the future. And hey, I'm all for whatever can make a healthier and more diverse tournament scene, because no matter how you feel about the ban list, I don't think anyone enjoys playing 7 rounds against the same Day Live deck, unless you're playing that Frederica Beaufort build that won European BRO, in which case I imagine you're pretty disappointed. But that's not all I wanted to talk about, because we were hit with some delays and some new set announcements. So first off, Fate Grand Order Camelot is now coming out the 17th of June. It will be followed on July 29th by Tokyo Revengers, which was originally supposed to release simultaneously in Japanese and English. Unfortunately, or fortunately if you wanted to see how the Japanese played Revengers before we got it over here, this will no longer be the case, as Revengers is still scheduled to come out in Japanese in May. I don't think I need to remind everyone how shipping and logistics are fucked right now, and with that global pandemic and war in Europe and Just imagine me vaguely gesturing at everything. Man, I'm so glad we have Weiss Schwarz to distract us from the grim reality of the 3D world. If Vladimir Putin was an anime villain, you know shit would be different. Anyway, speaking of anime, we have some announcements. Attack on Titan, the final season, is scheduled to release on August 26th. As with all English originals, it will have its own supply set with sleeves and deck box, and these look fucking sick, IMO. Now, oddly enough, being that this set is legal to play with any cards beginning with AOT, meaning it's technically a sequel set, it will feature its own Trial Deck Plus, which is highly unusual for sets that already have expansions. So far, we know that the regular expansion will have signed cards for Mikasa, Eren, Armin, Levi, and now also Reiner, and the Trial Deck Plus will have SPs for Gabby and Falco. We also have a spoiler for in-store promos that will be distributed at the time of release. And these are hot fire. There's an Armin level 1 that gets some power and lets you search for a character on reverse if you pay one and rest another one of your characters when he comes in, an early play stock healing Eren that's basically Aqua from Konosuba, and a Titan Eren that's a good Musashi. There's also a clean cut Mikasa, a coward runner Reiner, and an early play burnt load, and some high level hate cards in the form of Ymir and Historia. Real talk, all of these cards are pretty cash, and it's likely you'll see them in decks. The promo packs that these cards come in will have 3 regular cards, plus 1 random foil, and will come with the purchase of any 1 box of any Titan set. Now the interesting thing here is that all of these characters have the traits Core, Weapon, and Titan, meaning that they work well with the previous expansions. Many players, including me, thought that this expansion wouldn't play nice with the previous Titan sets because they were so dominant for so long. But hey, times change, and I'm very interested to see how things shape up with the new expansion. Now one thing you might be worried about is that with this being the case, how am I going to get my hands on the old Titan stuff since it's been out of print for so long? Well, Bushiroad announced that Titan Set 1 and Set 2 will be reprinted in preparation for the final season. Sorry speculators, your level 3 Armins aren't going to be $50 for long. These will be released on the 26th of August, just like the final season expansion, so if you want to pre-order any, let your LGS know. Now, Attack on Titan isn't the only thing that was just announced. Being that we're all here, we might as well point out that the Quintessential Quintuplets Volume 2 will come to English on August 12th. There will be an in-store promotional pack containing one of these promos, which will contain 1 out of 5 regular or 5 foil versions of these cards shown here, and will be redeemable with the purchase of any 8 packs of Quints 1 or 2. All of these are actually promos from the Japanese Quintuplets Cup, and all have the same effect. They can be played without meeting the color requirements for their card, and you can pop them and pitch a card to salvage a character, and you can rest them to give a character 1k across turns. Thank you Lunchbox for spoon-feeding my non-Japanese playing ass this information. Please check out his channel, Casually Weiss Schwarz. Anyway, Quints 2 is supposed to be pretty spicy, so I would take a look at it. Or if you don't feel like that, just wait for me to make my set showcase on it, because I 100% will. Alright, that's where I'm going to wrap up this mini update. Obviously, there's a lot more happening in the coming months, and I'll cover it more in-depth in my spring update, coming hopefully before the weather gets too abysmally hot. There's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon, like Hololive, going into the first in-person regionals since COVID, and a lot of cool new announcements and box openings, so look forward to all this in the near future. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.